first introduce you to our speaker, Charlie Hartley, and also Gillian White, the Solution Centre Manager for the Subsurface Solution Centre. So, before we start, Charlie, could you just please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. So my name is Charlotte Hartley, but please call me Charlie. I sit on the board at 2050 Climate Group, and I wear a couple of other hats as well. My main hat, the hat that I get paid to wear, is for a carbon capture and storage project developer called PaleBlue.Energy, and we're leading the development of the Acorn project up at St. Fergus. And the other hat that I wear is with the Energy Institute Young Professionals Network in Aberdeen. So I'm one of the office bearers for the committee there. So really passionate about anything to do with young people and engaging in the energy transition.
Thank you very much. And Gillian, could you just please tell us why Charlie's here today and why this is of interest to the OGTC?
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. There are a lot of reasons why we have Charlie here today, apart from being an excellent speaker and a fantastic ambassador for young professionals in this arena.
A lot of pressure.
No pressure. Anyway, in the Oil and Gas Technology Centre, we recently launched the Net Zero Solution Centre. So this is very, very complementary to where we want to go in the future as an industry and as a company. And we have two big challenges there. One is to decarbonize the oil and gas industry, and the other one is to help us to become integrated into the net zero basin and the energy transition up to 2050. So this is a huge market. It's set to at least double the offshore energy sector in up to 2050. And so that's a big part of why we have Charlie here today. This takes a lot of quality engineering and business skills. We've got a lot of them in Aberdeen, but we also need leaders for the future to enable this to happen. So STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths, is a big part of what we do here too. And so the young professionals of the future, Jason, who unfortunately is not here today, He is actually taking part in the programme. So apart from anything else, I'm really looking forward to finding out what it is he does when he's down there. Okay? Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I guess probably heard enough from us now. So I'd like to hand over to Charlie if you're ready.
Yeah, I think so.
Your 20 minutes starts now.
Gosh, it's quite threatening having that clock up there. Yeah, so as I said, I am Charlie and I'm involved with 2050 Climate Group, which is not very active in Aberdeen, so I'm hoping that everything I say to you today will be new. And the subject that I was asked to speak about today was leading for the future. And I think certainly in the last few years, when we think about leading for the future, there's one person who we think about in particular, and this lady. And she has had a really significant impact, and a lot of people consider her to be the figurehead of young people taking action on climate change. You know, she's actually not new. A lot of what she says is drawn very close parallels to another young activist in 1992 called Severin Suzuki. So actually what she's saying isn't, it's not kind of groundbreaking, and it's certainly not fresh, but she's having a really significant impact for the reasons which we're all aware about. The second thing that we think about quite a lot when we're leading for the future, maybe these guys, Extinction Rebellion. This is International Rebellion Week. Yesterday, some people climbed on top of a plane at London City Airport. A lime green boat closed down Times Square in New York. In Rio and Colombia, some Extinction Rebellion activists, they performed like a kind of movement, artistic performance to show in an artistic way the decline of our natural world. So there's a lot happening in the space. What these guys say at Extinction Rebellion is they ask you to make a choice between extinction and rebellion. But at 2050, we offer a different approach, which is why it's really great to be able to share that with you today. So Extinction Rebellion was founded in 2018, and they've made a huge impact in quite a short space of time. We've been active since 2014, and we've been going from strength to strength, making a lot of movement in the Scottish young leadership space. We're beginning to really increase our focus in Aberdeen. It's great to hear that Jason is on the Young Leader Development Programme. Also happen to know that a member of staff Oil and Gas UK is on our Young Leaders Development Programme this year. We became a Scottish charitable incorporated organisation in 2016. Prior to that, we were incubated by Young Scot. And our real aim is to build momentum in the climate change space and to build a generation of leaders. Our vision: by 2050, our generation will have led and accelerated the progress to a low-carbon society and be active citizens in a sustainable world. We will do this by leading a social movement, by engaging, educating and empowering Scotland's future leaders to take action on climate change. And we do this in a number of different ways, which I'll come on to, but our real focus is on being constructive, being collaborative, and being innovative. We really want to get engaged in the conversation just as much as we want to kind of protest and picket. But we don't do, we're not an activist organisation, we're an educational organisation, if we had to describe ourselves in that way. We believe that our actions and decisions today will shape the way we will be living in the future, and 2050 starts now. We feel quite strongly about this. So who are we? We are a collection of young professionals from all across Scotland's public, private and third sector groups, and we all share a commitment about accelerating the transition to net zero. So we work all across Scotland, and we work all across different industries. So we've got some in Scottish Government, we have a lot of engineers, a lot of consultants, we've got individuals who work in professional services, academia. You know, our reach is broad. We're not focused on any particular remit, and that is intentional. We're cross-cutting, we're as diverse as we can be. Some individuals are really focused on building technology in their own specific organizations. Some are more focused on the legal or the accountancy or the consultancy side of things. As I said earlier, I work for a project developer looking to decarbonize a lot of the oil and gas industry, and any CO2 emissions that we can get our hands on, we're prepared to store. And we also work quite closely with a few of our sponsor organisations, so the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation, SEPA, the Scottish Government, and Young Scot. We also, yesterday, announced a partnership with Tennent's Lager, so that is very exciting for us. Looking forward to seeing how that one unfolds. One of our ops volunteers who left the organisation last year, they said to us, having lived across the world, I see that what we do here is great. The only people who tackle climate change during the day and then go to the pub. It's a great organisation to be part of. At 2050 Climate Group, we have 3 key objectives. Our first one is to empower young leaders to lead and take action to create a just and sustainable society. The real thing that we're meaning here is we want to articulate the path to a net zero society, define that for our young leaders so that they know what they're working towards. We provide as much support and opportunities to young leaders as we can. A lot of our young leaders are not members of 2050 Climate Group. 2050 Climate Group has approximately 60 volunteers and a small dedicated staff team. Our leaders network has over 400 young people in it, and that grows by approximately 130 people every year. And what we're really aiming to do by empowering our young leaders is giving them whatever support that we can and providing whatever opportunities that we're able to. Our second objective is to equip our young leaders with the knowledge, skills, and confidence to take climate action. There's 2 real things that we need to take action on climate change as individuals, either in our personal lives, our professional lives, or on a political scale. And that's the motivation to do it and the means to do it with. A lot of people who engage with us at 2050 Climate Group, they've already got the motivation. And as we've seen from the likes of Extinction Rebellion, Greta's Army, like motivation is something that young people have in spades. We're absolutely like not not facing a problem with the motivation to take action. But there can be a bit of a skills gap, particularly with young people, about tangible action that they can take. So what we do is we aim to equip them with as much climate change knowledge and as much leadership knowledge as we can so that they have the confidence to go out into their own space and to take action in their respective fields, in their respective lives. And finally, our third objective is to enable young leaders to create and access opportunities to be a leading voice for young people on climate change decision-making. Young people are often cited as the reason for other people to get involved in climate change. My business I work for has doubled in size in the last 6 months, and a lot of our more senior members of staff have said that they have been motivated to join us because their kids are asking them what they're doing. And I'm hearing that a lot. Children are asking, young people thinking about the future, grandchildren. Young professionals and young people are a big reason for others to get involved in climate change. And what we aim to do to enable our young leaders to take action is opportunities, give them as many opportunities as we can. For example, speaking personally, I sit on the Scottish Just Transition Commission, which is looking at how to create a just and sustainable society as we move towards net zero. What is young people's role in that? And that is something that I have this opportunity to do, which is really exciting. So how do we deliver on these objectives? We've set ourselves a very big job. Our flagship, our core, absolute foundation of everything that we do is our Young Leaders Development Programme. So each year we take in a cohort of around 130 young people, young professionals, students, whoever applies. It's a competitive application process. And we teach them over 6 modules, climate change knowledge and leadership skills in their personal life, in their professional life, and in their political life, things which they can tangibly take away and apply to their respective spheres. Once our young people have graduated from the Young Leaders Development Programme, they join the 2050 Leaders Network. We still continue to support them. We organise events. Last week, we organised political speed dating, where you could meet a series of local politicians and work with them on certain issues. We have access to a fund. We have established a fund called the 2050X Fund. If a young leader has an idea, and what they're really lacking is the money to see it through, then they can apply into our 2050X fund and we can support them in that way. What we've seen is quite a few different things have happened as a result of this group. I don't have our impact report with me, but we've had, there's an organisation set up in Glasgow called the Glass Vegan, and that is a kind of vegan blog in Glasgow. We have had a number of different lobbying activity take place and a number of different actions which people have driven forward. National and international policy representing our generation. As I said, I sit on the Just Transition Commission. One of my colleagues at 2050 Climate Group sits on a Scottish Government task force addressing plastic reduction. 2050 Climate Group were invited to provide evidence on the climate change bill. And also a group of our young leaders as part of the programme last year, they organised themselves to become Good Food Nation ambassadors. And this was a nationwide programme to encourage more sustainable food production. So we've done a lot of that. Organise events, as I've mentioned before. This is one of them. Organisational development. We have done a lot of things over the last few years to set ourselves up as a SCIO, to establish ourselves as a SCIO initially, to set ourselves up as an employer. We do a lot of these different things to make sure that we are as effective as we can be as an organisation. Partnerships and funding, as I've mentioned, we're partnered up with tenants at the moment, which is very, very exciting. We are supported through a number of different organisations through application bids that we apply into. And these work in a number of different ways. So we work to be as independent as we can be. You know, we're not backed by, we don't have any kind of backup. If we can't apply for the funding, we cannot do what we do. And finally, internationalization. We're really excited to have replicated the Young Leaders Development Program in Malawi. And we did this for the first time last year, and we're seeking to do it again this year. And that's a really big step for us. And that's just the first in what could be a whole suite of international activity. And the reason that we do this, as we all know, a huge focus for us is equipping young people to make change, recognizing that systematic change needs to be done at a government level. And as we can see, our current climate policies, that's us on track for 3.1 to up to 4.8 degrees rise. We need to be down here in the 1.5 degree pathway to shoot our emissions straight down. So it's great to see that the OGTC have their Net Zero Solution Centre to help bring us down there. As I said, what does our future look like? As I said here, hoping to be rerunning our Malawi project this year. We have applied to make the project bigger and better. Put it into perspective about Malawi. In Scotland this year, we received over 400 applications for 130 places. The Malawi program last year received over 3,000 for under 100 spaces. So the momentum is there, and we need to do as much as possible to equip them and to let them kind of run with their own iteration of the Young Leaders Development Program. This was the climate change plan. We were included in the ministerial forward. 2050 Climate Group, for example, aims to equip Scotland's young people with climate change knowledge and leadership skills so that they can lead the way to a sustainable, low-carbon society by 2050. You know, the plan for the future is really just to keep going from strength to strength, because this is really, really great, and it shows that what we're doing as a youth-led organisation is working. And finally, this is a good example. This is a young leader. Her name is Kim Cooper. Let me find her slide. Right, so I don't get this wrong. At the time of this, she was working for Scottish Water in the microbiology lab, and she really wanted to address the use of consumables. So what she did was she worked with the organisation, we supported her, and they were able to replace, for example, all of their plastic loops inside what they did with steel loops. And here she is speaking at the Scottish Environment Link conference. Following this, she was assigned a mentor within her organisation to look at other ways that she could address sustainability issues at Scottish Water. So, final slide and 4 minutes to go. This is Greta's army. Predominantly school children. I'd love to go to school, but I need to save the planet. Roses are dead, violets are dead, everything is dead, climate change is real. Protons, neutrons, electrons, morons. These guys have openly admitted, Greta Thunberg has openly admitted, that they would rather be in school than protesting. We are an organisation of young people. We are a generation of young people who are already in the workplace. We have already been to school to learn how we can take action on climate change, how we can move to a sustainable society. We are already in the workplace. We're already learning the skills which are required in leadership. We're already speaking to the right people about what we can do to make a difference. We are recognised for the work that we do. This is the Scottish Green Energy Awards. 2050 Climate Group was awarded then. We're already very active in this space. This is the 2050 Climate Group organisation, as many as was available that day at our away weekend. And these are our rebellionites. So it's the purpose of what I've said to you today is really to introduce 2050 Climate Group, introduce the importance and the role of engaging with young people, in particular young professionals, we're already here. We're already working. And instead of be a rebel for life, but please be a rebel for the status quo. We're probably going to get there. I personally feel that we're going to get there quicker if we engage, if we innovate, if we collaborate, and if we work hard to drive change than if we work hard to climb on top of an aeroplane. I think that, I love what they say, be a rebel, absolutely, but challenge the status quo. And that's everything.
Charlie, thank you. That was fantastic, very inspiring. Really enjoyed hearing what you had to say. So the time has come to open the floor to you guys. And we've got 20 minutes for questions. And I'd ask you, please, because today we're filming Charlie's talk and we're filming your responses. So we'd like you, if you have a question, stick your hand up and we'll give you a microphone. You have to hold it fairly close to your mouth. Otherwise, we can't hear you.
Hello. Very interesting. I was actually at an OG UK, not Oil and Gas UK, rebadged to OG UK event yesterday. And as a follow-up to a lot of points raised, how important do you think it is for organisations such as OGTC and OG UK to be collaborating far more with the more middle ground individuals and groups and the rebels as well? Because I think there seems to be a concern, certainly at the OG UK level and among others, that there's not really a collaboration. It's a bit of a them and us situation at the moment that needs to change.
Yeah, I completely agree. And drawing on a personal experience, 2 years ago, when I spoke about working in carbon capture and storage to people, a lot of climate activists, I was the bad guy for wanting to continue oil and gas production. When I spoke to people in oil and gas about working on an environmental service, I was like a hippie tree hugger, and how did I get into these events? And it was really bizarre and it was, a bit like firefighting on both sides. And I think that there is being a lot of work to pull it together. I think it would probably be quite easy to engage with the kind of what you described as the middle ground. Engaging with the activists, I think it really depends on which ones you get. A lot of the environmental NGOs, they're really, they're keen to sit down at the table and have a conversation. And I think that is what needs to be done in spades, because Aberdeen, when I go elsewhere, Aberdeen is a bit of a silo. People don't really come here. So they don't really hear what we're doing. We're not the best at communicating. When at the time of the downturn, I think we became a bit unpopular. When oil and gas is booming, petrol and diesel are quite unaffordable for a lot of other people. When it's crashing, it's more affordable, so the public are very happy. I remember seeing in news, being like, oh, it's great, petrol's at 99 pence. Everyone in Aberdeen was like, oh my word. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to bridge that. But certainly my experience is getting a conversation with most of these groups is not challenging, and we just need to do as much of it as we can.
Yeah, great question. Anybody else?
Always have a question. Looking at the overall impact, it is very much young.
Yeah.
And what concerns me is the demographic of older people and where are they within all of this, and what are we doing to sort of bring them more on board visually? Because the media portrayal can be negative, especially with some of the latest things that's going on. In fact, climbing on a train and so on, climbing on a plane. But so that tends to get people's back up when they can't go about their normal day-to-day work. Yeah. So what is there being done to sort of bridge that gap and improve that relationship? I know you're saying communication and so on, but action-wise?
I think what I'm seeing a bit so far, I don't know what the answer is. I think, communication is a big part of it. I certainly think engagement, like actively engagement. 2050 Climate Group is a youth-led organisation by young people, for young people. But the main reason that we are we are set up like this is because to date there has been, including young people and young voices at the table, has been quite unusual. And I think that what we do risk is the flip side of that happening, so that a lot of mature individuals are still able to provide, they have years of experience, years of knowledge, and how do we bridge that gap so that we bring everyone along. So in all honesty, I don't know what the answer is. But if
I'm willing to help.
But if you are a mature person and you would like to help, then it's just coming forward with the solution with the willingness and with the enthusiasm to engage with young people just as much as you would your peers.
Thank you. So you mentioned mentoring, and we have started a mentoring app at the OGTC. So I think that's one very strong foundation for that. When people can contact one another and different generations and different levels of experience and so on. Yeah. So. Anybody else got any other questions? Don't be shy. Thank you.
Charlotte, great talk. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
My question is, younger generation also seems more keen on things like open source, freeware, much more sharing. Do you think that clashes with maybe what needs to be done in terms of... So there's a big thing we need to achieve, and how we're going to achieve that if there's also commercial sensitivities. And do you think young people are a solution to that?
This is your question around commercial sensitivity and information sharing to drive solutions. That is hard. I suspect that a lot of commercial issues and intellectual property will continue in the way that it has done. Certainly what I'm seeing in carbon capture and storage, for example, is that a number of projects are being a lot more collaborative because they're not in competition. And in order to... Climate change is an absolutely colossal issue, as we're all well aware. And really we need all of the help, all of the technological solutions, all of the innovations. We need all the help that we can get. So I think we need to foster an environment that it is as... transparent, as sensible, and as realistically possible, because it's no longer a case of one particular technology prevailing over another or one particular solution prevailing over another, because we need them all. So I don't know what the specific answer is around it, but I think it's just creating an environment that allows everything to move forward at the same time. I hope that helps.
I think Roger has a question at the back.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi.
Great speech as usual. I just wondered, I've got a couple of questions really. First one is, we're in the decom side, and are you seeing enough happening in the reuse of existing facilities for carbon capture and storage, I guess is the first one. And the second one, can I just test at 45 if I'm the top end of young or the bottom end of old?
You don't have to answer that.
It's an interesting point, though. 2050 Climate Group is currently looking at how it can broaden its reach beyond 35, so you're still in. And the other thing is, as life expectancy is increasing, some, like NATO, have just broadened all of their age gaps. Infrastructure reuse. At the moment, we're seeing a bit. As far as I'm aware, there's a legal requirement for organisations and for infrastructure owners to perform a reuse assessment before it is decommissioned. I think what we kind of challenge a bit on that is how effectively that reuse assessment is being done. Whether it's a case of being like, no, and then moving to decommission it, or whether it's being thoroughly assessed. As part of the Act Acorn feasibility study that was finished in January, we found that there were something like well over 540 pipelines in the North Sea that could be available for reuse. So I think what needs to happen is a more serious view of the reuse and serious considerations about the transfer of liability, because that seems to be what's scaring people the most at the moment.
You have another question?
One more on your target zero, if you like. I mean, every year to reach that, you will have a measure of success or what's not working quite so well. Where are you to date within those targets, and you feel that there's some areas that are harder, and what's going to be done to try and bring them back on track?
With respect to what the work that 2050 Climate Group is doing?
Yes.
So 2050 Climate Group's KPIs are predominantly related around opportunities given to young people. We are noticing a significant increase. We don't have numerical values against those. We don't have, young people currently involved in one opportunity will, have access to 5. We don't have anything like that. We are seeing a real shift. And the Just Transition Commission one, that was a real turning point for us, because for a long time, and that's got nothing to do with the fact that I'm the representative on that commission, because I came in a bit later than that, but the concept of a just transition, this is all as an example, was legislated as part of the Paris Agreement. 2050 Climate Group were engaging with Scottish Government at the time and said, what needs to be done, what would be useful for us to do. They said, just transition. So in 2018, we held a summit called Just for Youth, and that pulled together over 400 young people. We organised 3 different workshops on what a just transition meant with respect to leadership, with respect to climate, and with respect to knowledge and knowledge sharing. And we pulled all of that information together, produced a white paper, gave it to Scottish Government and said, you asked, here's the answer from young people's perspective. It's really important to engage young people in the conversation and in shaping this. And then they turned around and said, sit on the commission. So that was it's a really clear journey of how, we've been lobbying for youth to be involved in decision making and in conversation, to see the journey through to then be in that position. So I hope that kind of answers your question. A lot of our KPIs aren't that. They're easy to measure from our perspective, but they're not easy to put numerical values against and to kind of graphize. But we are seeing a lot of it is opportunity driven, and because of what we're working on and what the landscape is looking like at the moment, we're seeing a lot more opportunities come through.
Great speech, Charlie. Well done. My question is very simple.
That's good.
You'll be happy to hear. After
Thank you for that.
Complexities from other parts of the room. How do people sign up? People here will have children. They'll have people who will be interested in being part of this. How do they get involved?
Yes, the first step is we're really active on social media. So really encourage you to engage with us on social media. There are 2 key different ways that you can be involved with us, maybe 3. The first is as a volunteer or as a member of staff. And that is through an annual recruitment process for all of our volunteers, either for board positions or for operational volunteer positions. Staff recruitment is done as when required. The Young Leaders Development Programme, which is the biggest piece of our work, that is also done through an annual recruitment. It's a programme which runs roughly on an academic year. It's 6 Saturdays between September and March time. So you can apply into that. What we are in the process of doing is, if you are already considered to be a young leader through the application process, you can apply to join directly into our Leaders Network. And that Leaders Network is where we put quite a lot of our opportunities which aren't appropriate for 2050 Climate Group to look after themselves. So we pump quite a lot of stuff out to our young leaders to have as much engagement as possible. So those are the 3 ways.
Still have a few minutes left for some questions. Anyone else? Anything springing to mind? Pamela. Oh, and I have another question. Another couple. Pamela, do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you, Charlotte, for your presentation. I was just going to ask you, there's a lot of misinformation in the public about what is clean and what is green, and obviously, that's perpetuated by Extinction Rebellion and other and the media. Is your organisation doing anything? I think you would be best placed to, inform the public generally in terms of what is actually clean and how we're going to achieve the net zero by 2050. Are you doing anything in that sphere at all?
We don't undertake our own research, but as part of our climate change education workshops, so the 3 of them, as part of the Young Leaders Development Programme, we source as credible speakers as we can and work with, and that is cross-sector, so we've got energy suppliers, retail, hospitality, as much as, as broad as we can, to come equipped with the facts, because there is so much information out there. I think particularly, I personally hate the word green. It's really driven me nuts. So I think we are beginning to see the shifts away from using that and trying to make people as educated as possible. Yeah.
On your list of companies from where your members come, I don't think there are any oil and gas companies. Is that a conscious choice?
No, it's not a conscious choice. 2050 Climate Group is not very active in Aberdeen. I am the only operational volunteer. We've got a few people as part of our Young Leaders Development Programme this year. We've been working hard. One of my 2050 colleagues has engaged quite a lot with Shell over the last couple of years. We're really keen to change that, really keen to get a broader group of people involved, because there is a significant role for oil and gas in the energy transition. And engaging, creating climate leaders, Aberdeen needs lots of climate leaders. But it's a base on who applies, who is correct for the role, but we don't have as much engagement as we would like in Aberdeen. So if you would like to engage, we would love that.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
3 or 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
Do you have something you want to add there?
My ideas on...
Sorry, could you use the microphone?
Oh, sorry. Well, my ideas are, they make me a bit mad, but everything out there is just the consciousness of everybody that lives on this planet. So if we don't clean it up, where are we going? If we don't change our behaviour, change our habits, if we don't change the oil and gas, what we're going to do, we might not have an energy source. We've got just carry on until it runs out, or we run out of steam, and then what do? Go back to staying in caves? That's my take on it.
Yeah, and to be honest, your take isn't entirely dissimilar to Extinction Rebellion. It's like we either go extinct or we make change. That is they've got a very black and white view, but it's correct. We need to make drastic, significant change, and behavioural is a huge part of that. I was speaking to someone during the networking part at the start and saying, only 5% of the world's population have flown before, yet aviation is a significant contributor to emissions. So there needs to be a behavioural change among the 5%. As well as technology advancements in aviation, there does need to be a shift in behaviour between those who fly at the moment.
I'm speaking to a friend just now, and I'm actually meeting him tonight, and he's back staying in the UK. He's a reliability engineer for Halliburton. Years and years of experience, and when I talk to him on the phone, he's flying everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And he's like, just sounds like he's totally depressed. And I spoke to him on Wednesday night, and I says, look, if I gave you a system that you could talk to your remote locations a lot easier, would that help you? He says, no, but I like travelling. And then I spoke to him again yesterday during the day, and he's back in his depression mode. I says, you could stop all that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be standing in front of somebody to communicate. Yeah? And that's what's wrong. I used to fly halfway across the world to look after IT systems. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point. It's about a culture change, a change in how we all do things. I think we've got time for a couple last questions. Andy at the back.
Yeah,
there.
last one. There we are.
I guess the quick question is carbon tax. Do you think it's a good way to go? And it kind of ties into the point on flying, because companies fly people everywhere because it's cost effective in the business context. Whereas if it's more expensive to fly, and perhaps that can be brought about through a carbon tax, it will make change. Do you think it's a good way to go?
Yes, I'm personally in favour of a carbon tax. I think that we need some sticks. We need both, but we need carrots and sticks. But yeah, we need a big stick. Yeah.
We've got 44 seconds left.
It's actually for everybody. Who here drives an electric car? Hands up. Does that not tell you something?
But I think there are a lot of other questions that you didn't ask. I changed my car earlier in the year. Who lives somewhere that's got an easily place to charge their car? Who works somewhere with charging infrastructure at work? Who spends 8 hours a day in Union Square? Because they do have charging infrastructure. And who can afford one? Because they are not cheap. Yeah.
But it's always good to keep asking these questions and to keep debating the answer. It really is. I think we have to keep doing that. Okay, guys, we're at 1 second and we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Charlie, big round of applause. Amazing talk. Thank you.